Hi there. Today I'm going to talk about Lighting the Fuse by Lucy Lewis. Excuse me. That's her married name. In the book, her name for most of it is Stevens. And she took part in Operation Raleigh, which is the crossing the ocean on a sailing ship expedition. And the attitude, mental toughness, and also physical toughness and ability to cope with many different challenges stood her in good stead later on. She worked in airport security at Stansted, but decided on a military career, and she enters the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst. Now, the popular image of Sandhurst is very beautiful buildings and so on, but there are bits of it hidden away, modern blocks, and that's where, at the time she's talking about, the late 80s, that's where the women were trained. Now, the cover of the book mentions sexism. Now, there's no doubt at the time the British Army was very sexist, institutionally so. However, in the book, there's no real instances of real, what you call blatant sexism. And particularly at Sandhurst, the DS, the staff, were very supportive, and her fellow cadets seemed to be a really good bunch. And she found the training, which was a mix of academic work and tough physical challenges. She found it grueling, but she, within the group she was in, all the friends, and so each contributed something in morale terms or actual help with particular topics and so on, and they all got on with it. There's a very funny story. A senior woman officer, very senior woman officer, briefs them about attending certain types of very formal mess functions at which she wears 9 pairs of knickers of various types. And the reason for this, as I say, is absolutely hilarious. I won't say any more. Anyway, Lucy manages to graduate, and at the time there was still the Women's Royal Army Corps. That's where they put the women, and they were then sent to various other units or regiments or corps of the army, and she was delegated to be part of the Royal Engineers bomb disposal. Now, the book doesn't really go into it in any depth, but there is a double role between in bomb disposal between Royal Engineers and, at the time, it was still Royal Army Ordnance Corps, now Royal Logistics Corps. They each had defined areas of responsibility. Doesn't really go into that too much, and the book doesn't suffer from it. But the Royal Engineers, as far as kind of the book describes, deals to a large extent with German bombs and indeed Allied bombs that have landed in on our shores, as well as artillery shells and that kind of mortar shells that may be found. And the training for this is really absolutely meticulous. They've got to learn to identify numerous types of aerial bomb, aerial mines, and all the different artillery and different types of mortars from many different armies, and then how to render them safe. And they're usually not in pristine condition, obviously. So the book goes into the training for this and the recognition of the German bombs in particular, and the fusing arrangements, and also the anti-handling arrangements. And some bombs were fitted with devices deliberately to kill bomb disposal people. She makes reference to the TV series Danger UXB, which I enjoyed. I watched it at the time. I think I've watched it since as well. Terrific series, and it kind of is the kind of face of Royal Engineers bomb disposal in World War II, because it was based on actual stories. So the challenge of dealing with these different munitions at this length of time, chemical changes have taken place, and it can be, what would have normally been quite a safe procedure can be very volatile. Also, many of the bombs, I found this very interesting, the locations are known and the decision's been made just to leave them where they are. It's either too expensive or too disruptive to dig them up and deal with them. Sometimes they're in quite remote areas. But if building work takes place or so on, then they do become a problem. One of the problems that they have to deal with, and this is where the expertise of the Royal Engineers comes in, is the bomb can be fairly deep in the ground, and it can be at any attitude. It can be nose down, for example, but it can be on its side, and it can be on the wrong side with the fuses at the bottom. So obviously, maybe they will have to rotate it, and to do this safely with a bomb whose state you don't know where it is really tricky. And as I say, the Royal Engineers' expertise in that kind of thing, in structural work, comes into it. Another thing is many of the bombs are fitted with a clockwork timer, which for one reason or another has stopped, but it's still a jolt can start it again, and then there's an unknown amount of time that it can run down. Nobody would know how long it's got left to run. So they still have stethoscopes to listen for the ticking. Another area that I found very, very interesting was, and I never heard of this before, during World War II, many of the air stations, the Royal Air Force bases that had actual runways, some of them were just grass, but the ones that had asphalt runways, because of the danger of invasion, the ones that were near to the coast had a crisscross of pipes underneath the runway filled with explosives. So the runway could be detonated and the airfield denied to the enemy, the invading enemy. And these were still in existence. And it was the job of Royal Engineers bomb disposal, and one of the things that Lucy got involved with, she became the first woman to be operational on bomb disposal, was in dealing with these under the runway devices. So, as I say, I found that very, very interesting. So after her time with bomb disposal, because they only do a certain amount of time, she eventually went to RMP, Royal Military Police, including service in Northern Ireland, and that's another interesting part of the book. She gets married. In her post-war career, one of the things she did is a certain amount of advising on movies and TV dramas, and she mentions she did some work on the drama The Bodyguard, which was pretty decent drama. But she does point out some of the flaws that such programs have, that IEDs and similar terrorist devices always seem to have very, very handily a digital timer for you to look at, so you know how long you've got, which obviously doesn't happen in real life. Interesting book. She obviously enjoyed her career. She got a lot out of it, and it comes over very, very well in lighting the fuse.